Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, the weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. First, I want to start with the people who've been listening to us for years. I think Suzy, who was always my co-speaker, and I had been doing a podcast for at least 10 years. And nothing's as sure as change. Here I am facing some myself. So this is my first solo flight of doing the podcast because Suzy has decided to step away for a period of time. She may be back, she may do guest appearances, but I invite you all to explore her website, which is at suzymazzoli.com. And Mazzoli is spelled Mezzoli. SuzyMazzoli.com. And Suzy is an amazing homeopath master healer, and she really wants to focus on her work at this point in time, and things like digital distractions is not where she's at. So I thank you all, as does she, who've listened for quite some time and enjoy her unique presentations of meditation. This podcast now will be basically astrology with, for those of you who have listened to me a long time know that I thread through different philosophies, ways of seeing, my own healing work, which is Reiki based. And there will be aspects of meditation and how you can cope with all the great transformations that we are all living through at this very exciting but also challenging point in time. Now I will begin. I'll start with July 29th. And the times I give are Eastern time, so you need to adjust if you're somewhere else on the planet. And it's no accident from my astrological way of thinking that as I'm doing this solo flight and basically Suzy has cleaved from working with me, we're in the waning moon cycle. Waning moon cycle is about finishing up, and we're at the last phase of it. The new moon is at the end of the week, and I'll talk more about that when I get there. But right now, on the 29th of July, Monday, again, I'm looking at Eastern time zone. What's going on is the moon is in the sign of Taurus. Moon is in the sign of Taurus, and it is nicely aspected, and I need to explain a little about how that feels to all of us. When the moon travels through the sign of Taurus, we want to be comforted. We want to be comfortable. We want to eat foods we enjoy, ideally savor a meal. We want to walk in nature. We want to smell good things. We want to feel clothes on our body that we love wearing. And you may think, doesn't everybody always want to do that? And many people don't notice it as much. Taurus notices it. And so when the moon is in that sign, those of us who have emphasis in earth signs, water signs, we really are feeling if the material things around us that we can actually touch, smell, taste are kind of causing friction. And on this day, we have a almost hallucinogenic, I would say, appreciation of colors, aromas, things like that. So it's a heightened visual, tactile emphasis. If you don't lean that way as a person, you may not notice this as much. On the other hand, if you do, this can be a day of very high creativity, but also wanting to be satisfied by the things that basically give us pleasure to be alive. So, how can you provide that for yourself? What can you do that allows you to feel that sense of being taken care of and really being in the moment? Nice thing about the moon in Taurus is it can really drive home for us the beauty of being present. And sometimes it can be at a little odds if you're way too comfortable in that chair or you want to extend the moment past when it's really a good idea for your work life or other commitments. And the thing about this day is because of what's going on with the planet Neptune, which can soften the edges and also create a kind of rosy attitude about what's going on, we can overlook perhaps deadlines or things that we really need to pay attention to. It's not necessarily terrible, but it is important if you have to be somewhere or have a deadline to meet or someone's expecting you. Overall, I think this is a really good day for getting things done and really terrific if you're in any creative field or working on a project that requires an eye, a sophistication, an aesthetic. You're going to be really satisfied with the result. The moon goes void, of course, at 4:59 p.m. and then very soon after it enters the sign of Gemini at 5:28 p.m. Once it does that, now we're in very different energy. Gemini is air, it's mutable, it likes to shake things up, find out what's new, move things around. And so there can be a lot of changeable energy. And it's quite a contrast from if you were doing something in a very focused way with that moon in Taurus, and now suddenly you're jumping to, oh, emails are coming in, texts, somebody needs me over here, and you can feel very scattered very quickly. And some of us may even be a little irritated, not necessarily in a bad way, but just know about yourself if you don't like to move too fast or get shifted. Keep your sense of humor always super important when the moon is in the sign of Gemini. Something to keep in mind over the next couple of days is with that moon in Gemini, there is also a tendency for us to overlook some things that we really need to pay attention to. If you're ignoring something that's kind of shouting to get your attention, like you need to, like you know you need to follow through with somebody, or you should notify somebody, or you didn't write down notations or keep people in the loop, this is going to come back and hit you in a way that is not comfortable. So do your best to let everybody know what's happening. Do not assume things. And really, this is a red hot warning because Mercury goes retrograde the end of the week. So we're in this shadow or storm energy, depending on your language, which is indicating that whatever we don't really do with focus and attention right now, we're going to have to go over the next few weeks. Edit, reinvent, which we may have to do anyway, because that tends to happen. People don't notice all the details, and then there's backtracking that must occur. So this is very high incident of that occurring in the evening Monday, Tuesday, and as we get into Wednesday until the moon goes void, of course, which is 10:46 p.m. That void period of time, about a half an hour, and then it enters Cancer at 11:19 p.m. Now, when the moon is void, of course, for those who don't listen regularly, it means that there's no emotional glue for us to really care about whatever it is that somebody said, hey, you want to make this happen, or let's go here, or let's create this. People can get very excited of things when the moon is void, of course, but they don't really have the commitment to make it happen. So that's a very short void period, but it's just a little note for you to keep in mind about what void of course means. Once the moon is in the sign of Cancer, 11:19 p.m. Eastern time, and some people will be winding down, going to sleep, but if you're on the Pacific coast or another place in the world, then this can be a time when you're moving forward. Now, the interesting thing about the opening part of this week is that the last aspects of the moon as it's traveling through different signs is Neptune. And Neptune is, among other things, the highest octave of love. So at the beginning of the week, when I said that Monday, pretty good day, depending on what you were doing, certainly lots of creativity, sources of confusion or misunderstanding when the moon was in Gemini. When the moon is in Cancer, basically there's a lot of what I would call love juice around, but it's not like it's, oh gee, I love everybody, this is just wonderful. It can be, depending on other aspects of your horoscope, but it may be that you love to be with people with whom you feel comfortable, like family, people who just give you a sense of this is home, this is what I'm familiar with. It doesn't have to be who you're around, but when you focus on those things, the roots, where you've come from, where it is you're aiming to go, but it's like the old phrase, roots hold me close, wings set me free. These couple of days, for those of us who are fortunate enough to have people in our lives or memories or connections that we gather a lot of strength from, those things can really provide very nice anchors as we're moving through waters that are very challenging. We all know this, that unless someone is not paying attention to anything going on in the world, and then I doubt they're listening to this podcast, but we all are aware that we're in times that are highly transitional, lots of change. We don't necessarily know what's ahead. So, moon in Cancer, it's like you're in the middle of this ocean and you don't know where the shore is. But when we tap into that great sense of belonging and connectiveness, then there's a peace, a loving center that surrounds us regardless of the unknown. And so it's really important for all of us to tap into those exercises on a regular basis, that sense of, I don't exactly know what's ahead, but I do know that there is a loving source I can tap into. And if you doubt this, if you don't easily access it, it's a really important practice to sink into what is it that gives you that sense. Is it when you're in nature, gazing at a pond? Is it when you're sitting listening to birds or listening to some music that sweeps over you and has you feel like you are dancing in your soul? What is it that gives you that joy of connectivity? And when we tap into that over these couple of days, it's a tremendous resource for us to feel charged and able to swim in the directions that intrigue us or are calling to us, and trust that we are in safe waters. And if we feel that, oh, things are getting a little tumultuous or I don't quite know where I am, which can certainly be a sense that comes up, oh, especially on Friday when there's some planetary aspects that suggest, well, certainly in the morning, there can be some changes that come up, something unexpected, but it can also feel like a inspiration or, wow, where did that come from? It can be something that's a surprise that shakes us up, that can even be a bit derailing. If that's the case, then look for what gives you a sense of stability very quickly, because that can happen too, which is why I'm emphasizing what is it that gives you that sense of stability. None of us, even if we want to, can totally avoid things that occur that are, oh, where did that come from? And especially on the morning of August 2nd, with that, there's a Venus-Uranus picture in the sky that looks like, wow, that came out of the blue. So if that occurs, then what sets you right very quickly? What is it that gives you that sense of, okay, I know how to get myself back on track? You may not be on the same track. Maybe you've had to do this total detour. But the piece that you want to keep in mind is, how do I stay as directed as I was, with a sense of trust and knowing that what I need to do is going to unfold? And the interesting thing about what's going on, again, remember, we're the waning moon cycle. I'm talking about Friday now, so we're approaching dark of moon time. And a lot of this is unknown. What's ahead? What are we going into? And the unknown aspect comes up because when we work with lunar cycles, we're thinking, okay, I'm finishing up this whatever I've been working on, perhaps for the past 28 days, or maybe 6 months, or maybe 5 years, or maybe just this morning. I'm wrapping it up, or I'm deciding I'm putting it on the shelf, I'm not dealing with it, or I'm giving it away. It's just not mine. So when we do that in waning moon cycle, we're also inviting in what's coming next. And the coming next piece, we can be crystal clear, this is what I want to create, make happen, bring about. But we may not know the absolute linear path of it and how it unfolds. And even if we do, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, nothing is as sure as change. I actually love that quote. My father used to say it all the time, and he was not a man who liked change. So it's just a very good mantra, actually, to be aware of, because that is what it's about. When we don't change, we stop evolution, we stop the development, the growth, the unexpected magic that can come from, wow, I never would have anticipated that. Of course, some of it is a huge shock and not really what we want. And that's why, at this point in the waning moon cycle, with this very, very kind of delicious moon in Cancer, what are we opening up to? Now, the moon in Cancer is indicative, among other things, of the womb, where we all come from. And regardless of if you've been a mother or whatever relationship you have with nurturing and mothering, the idea of self-nurture and how you bring about energetically creating is really important to all of us. Basically, we're talking about second chakra stuff. So the second chakra is located between the navel and the root chakra. And it's energetically also connected to the sexual organs and the intestines. And when you think about those areas of the body, they are the area where change and transformation happens. We basically are processing food, minerals, as it moves through the intestinal tract and what we end up doing with it. And also, obviously, the sexual organs are the home of if we procreate. But metaphorically, it's all about what we create. So the moon in Cancer reminds us of our innate creativity. And with how it's moving through the sky, it's basically really wanting to create that what comes from love. And there may be some pieces that some of us have to slough off on this day, on August 2nd, Friday. There may be a sense of grief, of wounds, of being wronged or victimized that needs to slough off. You don't want to carry that into the next lunar cycle. And of course, if these are very deep wounds, they don't happen overnight. But it is important to note habits or reactions that are unconscious that basically keep feeding the wounds. So expressions of anger, expressions of pain, sarcasm, ways that we continue to feed the sense of being wronged, being forgotten, being victimized. Those are things that we can see the toxicity of them, especially in today's world, how they run rampant and overtake a lot of what could be constructive dialogue. Because when we're stuck in the wounds or the habits of words that basically are not constructive, they are destructive. They don't build. They don't offer solutions. And they certainly don't create regenerative energy. So Friday the 2nd, like the day before, these are creative, productive days when we're thinking of how do I amplify love? How do I amplify a sense of expectation, faith, belief in something bigger, something better? How do I emphasize it? And if I don't know how to do it myself, how do I welcome it and create a garden in my mind of positive thoughts, or at least rake away the patterns or words that are reactive and toxic, because they don't serve me and they don't help. So the raking away of the old stuff is also a way that we invite in new ideas. The moon goes void, of course, on Saturday the 3rd at 6:31 a.m., and then it enters the sign of Leo at 7:10 a.m. Once it's in the sign of Leo, big contrast to that moon in Cancer. It's hot, it's what we call sustaining. It's the sign that sustains the season. And that's the new moon in Leo that we go at on Sunday the 4th. The new moon is exact at 7:13 a.m. on Sunday, and Mercury goes retrograde. Well, actually, it goes retrograde the next day when you're looking Eastern time, but we are in what feels like it's really hit. So it's actually Monday, 12:56 a.m., but we're less than an hour away from it by midnight on Sunday. So what does that mean? Let's look at that new moon. That new moon is challenging us. It's basically saying, where are you stuck to a point that you feel you might erupt? Because if we've done our work this week, we've been moving through old thoughts and things that we know aren't serving us anymore. And that Leo is the divine child. And it wants to do things that have impact. It can be dramatic. And so you can find yourself around people or situations this weekend where that drama level is really high. If you're a fire sign or you have fire signs in your life, air signs, these are people who can get very revved up this particular weekend. And that new moon is bringing in a sense of, what are you going to do that allows you a sense of play, but also the energy that's more about, what are you creating that's yours alone? What is your unique voice? You may think, I don't know what that is, and I don't know what Pamela's talking about. My voice is, what does she mean by my voice? Well, for instance, I love music, but you don't want me to sing. Yet, my voice is how I express what I need, what I want, how I love, my goals, and it can be frightening for some of us to really define that. So if that's the case, define it at least to yourself on this day. If you are able to sing, by all means sing. Even if you're not really able to sing, by all means sing if that's what you want to do. Use this new moon to invite in a surprise, something unexpected. But as the old phrase goes, be careful what you ask for. Because when we invite in what we ask for, what we really, really want, we have to be ready to accept the change. Thank you for your continued support as I start on my solo venture. Please email me or message me about what you think of the new version and anything you'd like me to add, and if you'd like me to put in a guided meditation at the end. as I know many of you have been used to. All right, thank you so much. You have been listening to Pamela Cuccinell of Astrology Insight Now. If you've enjoyed this program, consider a donation. A link for that at astrologyinsightnow.com. I invite you to join me again for next week's podcast. Please share with others who can benefit from insight and have a stellar week. have been listening to Suzy Mazzoli and Pamela Cuccinell of Insight Now. If you've enjoyed this program, consider a donation. A link for that at astrologyinsightnow.com. We invite you to join us again for next week's podcast. Please share with others who can benefit from insight, and have a stellar week.